The main chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from hundreds of alien species. The enormous room stretched high above, with seats arranged in circular rows that rose toward the ceiling. In the center stood a platform where speakers addressed the assembly. Today, that platform held Ambassador Thalvex, a tall creature with 4 eyes and skin that shimmered like oil on water. Captain Doyen sat with the human delegation in their assigned section. He wore his military uniform, crisp and clean, but his hands were clenched tight on the armrests of his chair. Beside him, Lieutenant Jiwoo kept glancing at him nervously. She wanted to say something to object to what was happening, but Doyen had told her to wait. Thalvex's voice echoed through the chamber as translation devices converted his clicking speech into words everyone could understand. He spoke slowly, making sure every word landed with weight. The human delegation could hear the satisfaction in his tone even through the mechanical translation. Members of the Council, we gather today to discuss Resolution 4477. This resolution will ban humans from participating in all combat sports, military demonstrations, and warfare exhibitions throughout Council territory. The reason is simple. Humans are too weak. Their bodies are fragile. They break easily. They tire quickly. Their reflexes are slow compared to most species here. It is almost cruel to let them compete against us. They embarrass themselves and waste our time. Laughter spread through the chamber like ripples on water. Some aliens clicked their mandibles in amusement. Others made sounds that their species used to express mockery. The human delegation sat in silence, watching it all happen. A massive figure rose from the Kreshnak section. General Vormal stood over 3 meters tall, with thick muscles visible even through his ceremonial armor. His species was known throughout the galaxy as warriors. They had never lost a war. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. I have seen human warriors in training exercises, Vormal said. They are like children playing at combat. I could break one with my bare hands without effort. Their bones snap like dry twigs. They cannot even lift the weapons my soldiers carry as standard equipment. This ban is not just necessary. It is merciful. We are saving them from humiliation. More laughter followed. Some species representatives actually stood and applauded. The vote was called quickly. The results appeared on the massive display screens around the chamber. 127 species voted in favor of the ban. Only 3 voted against it. The humans and their 2 closest allies, both species that owed humanity old debts, were alone in their opposition. The gavel came down. Resolution 4477 was now law. Humans were officially banned from combat activities in Council space. As the session ended and representatives began filing out, Ambassador Heejan approached Thalvex in the wide corridor outside the chamber. She was a small woman by human standards, barely reaching the alien's shoulder, but she stood straight, her face calm and controlled. You have made a serious mistake today, she said quietly. Thalvex looked down at her. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture his species used to show contempt. Have I, Ambassador? I think not. Your species should accept its limitations. Not every race can be warriors. Some are meant for gentler pursuits. There is no shame in that. We accept nothing, Heejan replied. Her voice remained level, but something in her tone made Thalvex pause. However, we will respect the ban. For now. She turned and walked away before he could respond. Thalvex watched her go, feeling slightly unsettled, though he could not say why. The human had just been banned from combat activities across half the galaxy. She should be upset, angry, defeated. Instead, she seemed almost satisfied. The human delegation gathered in their quarters later that evening. The rooms were modest compared to what the more influential species received, but they were functional. Doyen stood before a holographic display, his fingers moving quickly through files and folders. The others watched in silence as he pulled up document after document, each marked with high security clearances. They think they know what humans are capable of, Doyen said finally. He turned to face his team. They have watched us in their sanitized combat sports. They have seen us in joint military exercises where we follow their safety rules. They have observed us being careful, being restrained, being diplomatic. He smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. They have never seen what we really are. They have never seen what humans do when everything is on the line. They have never seen Earth history. Jiwoo leaned forward. You want to show them the archives? All of it, Doyen confirmed. Every battle we recorded. Every survival situation. Every competition where humans push themselves to the absolute limit. Everything they think we cannot do. Another officer, Major Daihyun, raised a concern. Sir, some of that footage is classified. Some of it shows tactics we still use. Some of it is brutal. It might make things worse. Doyun shook his head. They have already decided we are weak. They have already banned us from proving otherwise in their arenas. We have nothing to lose by showing them the truth. And everything to gain. He pulled up file after file. Combat footage from Earth's many wars. Survival documentaries showing humans enduring impossible conditions. Sports recordings displaying feats of endurance and pain tolerance that would horrify most galactic species. Medical records of humans surviving injuries that would kill most aliens instantly. Our species spent 10,000 years fighting itself, Doyun continued. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to survive cold that would freeze most species solid. We learned to survive heat that would cook them alive. We learned to go without food or water longer than should be biologically possible. We learned to keep fighting with injuries that would put any of them in medical comas. He paused, looking at each member of his team. They think they have seen humanity. They have not. They have seen us at our most civilized, our most restrained, our most diplomatic. It is time to show them what we really are. Jiwoo smiled slowly. When do we present this to the council? Tomorrow, Doyun said. I am invoking Protocol 19, the right to present evidence of discrimination. They cannot refuse without violating their own charter, and they will not expect what we are about to show them. That night, Doyun sat alone in his quarters reviewing the footage one more time. He watched humans survive things that should have killed them. He watched soldiers fight on with wounds that would have ended any other species. He watched ordinary people endure extraordinary circumstances through nothing but stubborn refusal to give up. The galaxy had mocked humanity today. They had banned humans from combat because they believed humans were too weak to compete. Tomorrow, Doyun would show them their mistake. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn that humans were not weak. They were survivors, and that was far more dangerous. The council had officially ended their session 3 days ago, but the footage was still spreading across the galaxy. It moved through official channels and unofficial networks. Aliens who had never thought twice about humans were now watching recordings of human survival and combat. The debate raged on every station and every planet. In a bar on Station Epsilon 7, a group of Kreshnak warriors sat together watching the footage for the 6th time. They had been laughing at humanity just a week ago. Now they watched in silence as the recording showed 2 human soldiers defeating a Kreshnak raiding party. General Vormal sat with them, his massive frame hunched over the table. He replayed one section repeatedly. The part where the human named Suman dodged a strike that should have been too fast to avoid, then used the Kreshnak's own momentum to throw him into his companion. The speed is notable, Commander Tolrek said slowly. He was Vormal's second in command, known for his tactical mind. But in direct combat our strength would still... Watch their eyes, Vormal interrupted. He pointed at the hologram.
See how they look at each other?
No words, no signals. But they move together perfectly. They are thinking 3 steps ahead. We rely on strength and honor. They rely on winning. Tolrek watched the footage again more carefully. The humans were smaller, weaker, supposedly slower. But they moved with frightening purpose. Every action had meaning. Nothing was wasted. They turned everything into an advantage. It is disturbing, Tolrek admitted. They fight like they have nothing to lose. No, Vormal said quietly. They fight like they have everything to lose and refuse to accept defeat. That is far more dangerous. Meanwhile, Ambassador Heejin was in her office at the human embassy when a priority message arrived. The encryption was commercial grade, not military. The sender was listed as Shektar, a Vryn businessman who owned multiple combat sport franchises across Council space. Heejin opened the message. It was brief and direct. I will pay any price to see a human compete in the Grand Melee. Name your terms. She read it twice, then smiled. The Grand Melee was the largest combat competition in the galaxy. It happened once every 5 years and attracted the greatest warriors from every species. The rules were minimal. The combat was brutal. Billions of viewers watched across Council space. She forwarded the message to Captain Doyun with a single question. Thoughts? His response arrived within 5 minutes. Tell him we will send someone, but we choose the rules. Original Earth combat sport regulations, not galactic sanitized versions. Heejin sent the reply to Shektar. His response was immediate. Agreed. Send your warrior. The announcement went public 3 days later. Humanity had been granted a special exemption to the combat ban. One human competitor would participate in the Grand Melee under historical Earth combat protocols. The participant would be Corporal Yuna, a decorated combat specialist with 14 years of military service. The galactic reaction was immediate and divided. Some species saw it as entertainment. They expected to watch a human get destroyed in the first round. Others who had watched the archive footage were not so confident. They had seen what humans could do. They were curious to see it happen live. Thalvex issued a public statement. This is a publicity stunt. One warrior does not represent an entire species. The human will be eliminated quickly and this embarrassing display will end. Perhaps then humanity will accept their limitations gracefully. But privately, Thalvex was worried. He sent investigators to learn everything they could about Yuna. The reports they brought back did not comfort him. Yuna had survived 3 classified missions that were officially impossible. She had completed objectives while injured that should have sent her to medical care. Her success rate was 97% even when operating alone in hostile territory. Her combat instructors described her as relentless. Her medical file showed injuries that should have ended her career multiple times. She kept coming back. One report included a quote from her commanding officer. Yuna does not know how to quit. I have seen her complete missions with broken bones. I have seen her walk 30 kilometers with torn ligaments. I have seen her continue fighting after impacts that knocked her unconscious. She wakes up and keeps going. It is not normal. But nothing about humanity is normal. Thalvex read the reports 3 times. Then he sent a message to his own species representative in the Grand Melee. Be careful. Do not underestimate this human. The night before the tournament, Yuna sat in her quarters at the competition station. Her gear was laid out on the bed. Lightweight combat clothing designed for mobility. Reinforced gloves that would protect her hands without restricting movement. Medical supplies for after the fights. Everything was simple and functional. Lieutenant Jiwoo came to check on her. The whole galaxy will be watching, she said. Billions of viewers. Every species will be analyzing everything you do. Yuna did not look up from her preparations. I know. That is a lot of pressure. No, Yuna said calmly. Pressure is fighting alone behind enemy lines with no extraction plan. Pressure is keeping civilians alive while enemies surround your position. This is just a tournament. Jiwoo smiled slightly. Captain Doyen showed you the footage from the council session? He did. Yuna's hands paused in their work. I saw how they looked at us. The contempt, the dismissal. Like we were children playing dress-up as warriors. Does it bother you? Yuna looked up, her eyes hard. It motivates me. My grandfather used to tell me something when I was young. He said that humanity learned a truth over thousands of years. Never underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to prove. She returned to her preparations. Tomorrow I am going to teach the galaxy that lesson. Jiwoo left her alone. She found Captain Doyen in the observation deck overlooking the massive arena where the melee would take place. The sphere was 300 meters across, filled with obstacles and hazards. Is she ready? Doyen asked. She is always ready, Jiwoo replied. But sir, the competition is designed for much larger species. The obstacles are scaled for beings twice her size. The hazards are calibrated for species with natural armor or environmental resistances. I know, Doyen said quietly. He was watching the arena carefully, analyzing it the way a soldier analyzed a battlefield. Everything will be against her. The environment. The opponents. The rules themselves were made by species who never considered something human-sized could compete. Then why let her do this? Doyen turned to face her. Because Yuna is not trying to survive. She is trying to win. And because the galaxy needs to see that humans do not just endure impossible situations, we overcome them. He looked back at the arena. Tomorrow, 50,000 aliens will watch in person. Billions more will watch on broadcasts. They will see a human competing against the galaxy's best warriors. Most of them expect her to fail quickly. Some hope she will put up a good fight before losing. Almost none of them think she can actually win. And if she does win, Doyen smiled, then the galaxy will learn what humanity already knows. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We do not accept defeat. We find a way to win or we die trying, and we are very hard to kill. In the stands above, Workers were preparing the arena for tomorrow's event. They tested the obstacles, calibrated the environmental hazards, and set up the recording equipment. None of them knew they were about to witness something that would be talked about for generations. Tomorrow, the galaxy would stop mocking humanity. Tomorrow they would learn respect, and Corporal Yuna would be the one to teach them. 3 weeks had passed since the Council banned humans from combat activities. Most species had already forgotten about it. It was a minor decision to them, barely worth remembering. But today, the Council chamber was filling up again because Captain Doyen had invoked Protocol 19. Talvex sat in his elevated seat looking annoyed. Protocol 19 was ancient, created when the Council first formed. It gave any species the right to present evidence if they believed they had been treated unfairly. The Council could not refuse without breaking their own most fundamental laws. But Talvex was certain this was a waste of time. Captain Doyen, Talvex said as the human officer walked to the central platform, "This is highly unusual. The vote was fair. The decision has been made. What could you possibly have to show us that would change anything?" Doyen stood calmly at the center of the chamber. Behind him, his team was setting up a massive holographic projection system. The equipment was human-made, more advanced than what the Council usually used. Several species representatives watched with mild curiosity. "You made your decision based on incomplete information," Doyen replied. His voice was steady and clear. "You judged humanity based on what you have seen here. Combat sports with your safety rules, military exercises with your limitations, diplomatic interactions where we follow your protocols." He gestured to the projection system. "You have never seen what humans actually are. You have never seen us without restrictions. Today I will show you the human historical combat archive. Unfiltered, unedited. This is humanity as we really are." General Vormol laughed from his seat. "We have seen enough, human. There is nothing in your archives that will—" His voice stopped as the first image appeared. The hologram was enormous, filling the center of the chamber. It showed a battlefield on Earth, recorded hundreds of years before humans met other species. The quality was poor compared to galactic standard recordings, but the image was clear enough. A human soldier named Minho was trapped in a defensive position. The information displayed beside the hologram showed his medical status: 3 broken ribs, collapsed left lung, shattered leg bone, internal bleeding. By any galactic medical standard, he should have been unconscious or dead. But Minho was still fighting. The recording showed him holding his position for 17 minutes. He eliminated 23 enemy soldiers before finally falling. Even then, he was still conscious, still trying to reach his weapon when the recording ended. The Council chamber was completely silent. Several species representatives leaned forward in their seats. "That should have killed him in minutes," someone whispered. "The blood loss alone." "This is one soldier," Doyen said quietly. "One battle, one example. We have thousands of hours of footage like this. Shall I continue?" He did not wait for an answer. The next recording showed a human named Mireille. She was on a frozen planet, part of an early exploration mission that went wrong. Her ship crashed. The planet's temperature reached -50 degrees at night. She had no shelter, limited supplies, and the rescue team was 300 kilometers away. The footage tracked her journey. 43 days without real food, hands and feet damaged by frostbite, walking through blizzards that would have frozen most species solid in minutes. The recording showed her falling, getting up, falling again. On day 40, she was crawling. On day 42, she was barely moving at all, but she kept moving. She reached the extraction point on day 43. When the rescue team found her, the first thing she asked was if everyone else was safe. "Impossible," a Vryn delegate said loudly. "No biological system can function under those conditions for that long. Human systems can," Lieutenant Jiwoo said from the human section. "We evolved to endure. You evolved to be comfortable. There is a difference." The footage continued. Doyen showed them human sports. Not the gentle versions played in galactic arenas, but the original Earth competitions. Boxing matches where humans hit each other repeatedly and kept fighting. Wrestling bouts that lasted for hours. Mixed martial arts where fighters continued even with broken bones and torn muscles. The alien audience was visibly disturbed. They watched humans smile while fighting. Watched them shake hands with opponents who had just caused them significant pain. Watched them celebrate victories while bleeding and injured. "They are enjoying it," a council member said with horror. "They enjoy hurting each other." "It is called competition," Doyon replied. "It is how we improve, how we test ourselves, how we learn what we are capable of. You call it barbaric. We call it growth." More footage appeared. A human named Junho was shown holding a military position alone. His unit had been forced to retreat. He volunteered to stay behind and buy them time. The recording lasted 6 hours. For the first hour, Junho had ammunition and used his weapons effectively. Then his ammunition ran out. The alien representatives watched in growing disbelief as Junho switched to improvised weapons. Rocks, pieces of metal, traps made from equipment scraps. When the enemy finally breached his position, he fought hand to hand. When relief forces arrived 6 hours later, they found Junho still standing, surrounded by fallen enemies, still ready to fight. The recording showed his condition when medics reached him. Fractured skull, broken arm, knife wounds in his side and leg, severe dehydration. He should have collapsed hours earlier. Instead, he asked if his unit had made it to safety. When told they had, he finally allowed himself to lose consciousness. Talvex was no longer looking amused. His 4 eyes were fixed on the projection, watching as more examples appeared. Humans surviving falls that should have killed them. Humans continuing to fight with injuries that would incapacitate any council species. Humans enduring environmental conditions that others required heavy protection to survive. "This proves nothing," Talvex said, but his voice lacked conviction. "This shows that humans are reckless, savage. It proves our point. You are dangerous. To yourselves and—" "We are survivors," Doyon interrupted sharply. "Every species in this council evolved on relatively gentle worlds. You had time. You had safety. You developed civilization without constant existential threats. Earth tried to kill humanity every single day for millions of years. We evolved predators that hunted us. We survived ice ages and droughts. We endured diseases that killed millions of us." He walked slowly around the projection, his eyes sweeping across the assembled aliens. "We did not evolve to be the strongest. We are not the fastest. We do not have natural armor or weapons. We evolved to be the most stubborn species in the galaxy. We evolved to adapt to anything. We evolved to survive what would destroy you." The final piece of footage showed 2 human soldiers, Suman and Taehyung, encountering a Kreshnak raiding party years before official first contact. The Kreshnak were twice the human size. They had superior strength and natural armor. By every logical measure, they should have won easily. Instead, the humans used tactics the Kreshnak had never encountered. They used the environment against their opponents. They worked together with perfect coordination. They targeted weak points in the Kreshnak armor. The fight lasted 11 minutes. No Kreshnak survived. General Vormul stood slowly from his seat. His voice was quiet when he spoke. "I have trained warriors for 60 years. I have never seen tactics like that. They turned everything into a weapon. They fought like the environment itself was on their side. Because we learned to," Doyon said. "We learned to use everything we had because we often had nothing else. You can ban us from your combat sports, you can exclude us from your demonstrations, but you cannot change what we are. And what we are is the species that refuses to die." The projection faded. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then voices began rising. Some were angry. Some were thoughtful. Some were frightened. But none of them were laughing anymore. Ambassador Hyejin smiled from her seat. The galaxy had just learned something important. Humanity could be diplomatic. Humanity could be peaceful. Humanity could follow rules and respect boundaries. But underneath all of that was a species forged by millions of years of surviving the impossible. And now the galaxy knew it too. The arena station Omega Prime was crowded beyond capacity. 50,000 spectators filled the stands surrounding the massive combat sphere. Another 40 billion were watching on broadcasts across the galaxy. The Grand Melee happened only once every 5 years, and this year had something unprecedented. A human competitor. Corporal Una stood in the human preparation room. The space was small and simple compared to the elaborate facilities other species received. She wore lightweight combat gear that looked almost primitive next to the powered armor and energy shields other competitors favored. Her only weapons were her body, her training, and a pair of reinforced gloves. Captain Doyen stood with her, making final checks. The first round is a battle royale. 32 competitors enter the arena. The last 8 standing advance to the quarterfinals. Most species will try to form temporary alliances or avoid the strongest opponents. I am not here to hide, Una said flatly. Good. Because humanity did not come here to survive. We came here to win. Doyen placed a hand on her shoulder. Show them what we are. In the stands, Ambassador Heejin sat in the human delegation section. Around her, alien dignitaries made no effort to hide their amusement. Several were placing bets on how quickly Una would be eliminated. Some wagered she would not last 5 minutes. Others thought she might reach 10 minutes by avoiding combat. Thalvik sat several sections away in the premium seating. He appeared calm, but his fingers tapped nervously on the armrest. He had read the reports about Una. He knew she was dangerous. But surely one human could not compete against the galaxy's elite warriors. The arena master's voice boomed through the facility. Competitors, take your positions. Una walked through the entrance tunnel into the arena. The sphere was enormous from the inside, 300 meters of open space filled with platforms, obstacles, and hazards. The floor was rough and uneven. The air was thick with moisture that made breathing slightly harder. She was the smallest competitor by a significant margin. The Kreshnak warrior Dekvar stood nearly 3 meters tall and massed over 400 kilograms. The Vryn champion Tilvax had 4 arms and could strike faster than most species could see. The Haroon representative Gorash had armored skin that could resist most physical attacks. The crowd's noise was deafening. Cheers, jeers, chants in hundreds of languages. Most were not cheering for Una. Many were actively hoping to see her fail. The countdown began. 10 seconds, 5, 3, 1. The arena erupted into chaos. Most competitors immediately attacked whoever was nearest. Dekvar charged forward with a roar, his massive fists swinging. Tilvax moved to high ground to pick off weakened opponents. Others formed quick alliances or tried to find defensible positions. Una did something different. She ran straight toward the center of the arena where the terrain was most dangerous and chaotic. Several competitors saw her and dismissed her as a non-threat. She was too small, too weak, not worth their attention yet. That was their first mistake. She found Gorash locked in combat with another opponent. The Horan was winning easily. His armored body absorbed every strike without damage. But Una had studied the species extensively. Every armor had weaknesses. Every body had vulnerable points. She waited for the perfect moment when Gorash was focused on his current opponent. Then she moved. She did not attack the armor. She attacked the joint behind his knee, wrapping her entire body around it and wrenching it sideways with all her weight and strength. Gorash roared in pain and surprise. His leg buckled. Before he could react, Una was on his back, her arm wrapped around his neck in a chokehold. Not to crush his throat, that would be impossible through his armor. But to cut off blood flow to his brain. The Haroon thrashed violently. His strength was immense, but Una held on with grim determination. Her body was thrown around like a doll in a storm, but she did not let go. 20 seconds later, Gorash collapsed unconscious. First elimination. The crowd went silent for a moment. Then noise exploded across the arena. Shock, disbelief, excitement. The human had just eliminated one of the favorites. Una did not celebrate. She was already moving, already analyzing the next threat. A Vryn warrior named Sheknal saw her and attacked. All 4 arms came at her in a blur of strikes. This was where human evolution showed its advantage. Earth had dangerous predators. Humanity learned to track multiple threats simultaneously. Una's brain processed all 4 arms at once, reading the patterns, finding the rhythm. Vryn were fast but predictable. They relied on overwhelming speed. Una dropped low suddenly, sweeping Sheknal's legs. As he fell, she was already pivoting, her elbow driving into the soft spot where his translator connected to his nervous system. Sheknal convulsed and went still. Second elimination. The crowd was no longer laughing. They were watching with complete attention. 3 more competitors saw what happened and moved toward her together. They had learned. They would coordinate and use numbers against her. But Yuna had already seen them coming. She led them into a narrow passage between 2 obstacles. In open space, they could surround her. In a confined area, they had to come at her one at a time. The first through was a Dalmec warrior covered in chitinous armor. Yuna used the narrow walls as leverage, launching herself upward and planting both feet on his head. She rode him down face first into the ground, then twisted his head at an angle that put pressure on his neck. He tapped out immediately. Third elimination. The next 2 tried to come through together but could not fit properly side by side. They got in each other's way. Yuna used their confusion against them. She stayed in their blind spots, made them strike each other, used their own bodies as shields. When one finally grabbed her, she did not try to break free. She used his grip as an anchor point to swing her entire body around and kick the other opponent in the throat with both feet. The arena watched in growing amazement as Yuna systematically dismantled opponents twice her size. She did not rely on strength. She relied on physics, biology, and 10,000 years of human combat experience. She turned their size into a disadvantage. She used their confidence against them. She found weaknesses they did not know they had. When one opponent tried to use brute strength to overpower her, she let him tire himself out and then attacked his exhausted body. When another tried to match her speed, she changed tactics and used precision strikes to vital points. When a third tried to copy her style, she adapted immediately to something he had never seen before. The crowd was on their feet now. Even those who had bet against her were watching in awe. This was not just survival. This was dominance through skill and determination. A massive Kreshnak warrior named Bolkar charged at her with pure rage. He was fresh, uninjured, and determined to crush the small human who was embarrassing his species. He was also predictable. Angry fighters make mistakes. Yuna waited until the last possible moment, then dropped and rolled between his legs. As she came up behind him, she leaped onto his back, wrapped her legs around his waist, and began striking the nerve clusters along his spine. Bolkar roared and spun, trying to throw her off. But Yuna held on, her strikes precise and devastating. Finally, Bolkar dropped to one knee, unable to continue. He tapped out. The horn sounded, ending the first round. 8 competitors remained standing. Yuna was one of them. She was covered in bruises. Blood ran from a cut above her eye. Her breathing was heavy. But she was standing, and the galaxy was watching in complete silence. Ambassador Hyojin sat in the stands with tears in her eyes. Not from sadness, from pride. Around her, the alien dignitaries who had been laughing hours ago now sat speechless. Thalvex gripped his armrest so hard it cracked. His 4 eyes were fixed on the human standing in the arena below. Small, bloodied, exhausted, but victorious. The galaxy had come to watch a human fail. Instead, they had just witnessed something they never expected. They had seen what humanity really was, and they would never forget it. The Grand Melee had become the most watched event in galactic history. After Yuna's performance in the first round, viewership numbers exploded. Species that normally never watched combat sports were tuning in. The question on everyone's mind was the same. Could the human actually win? The quarterfinals took place 3 days after the first round. The delay was meant to give competitors time to recover from their injuries. Yuna spent those days in medical care, training, and studying footage of her next opponent. Commander Tolrek was General Vormul's personal champion. He stood 2.5 meters tall with muscle built over decades of combat training. He had won his first 3 matches without taking significant damage. He was skilled, experienced, and determined to restore Kreshnak pride after Yuna's earlier victories against his species. The match began with Tolrek taking an aggressive stance. He knew about human tactics now. He would not make the same mistakes others had made. He stayed patient, cutting off her escape routes, forcing her into disadvantageous positions. For the first 10 minutes, Yuna was purely defensive. She evaded, blocked, and retreated. The crowd began to murmur. Was she finally outmatched? Had she used all her tricks in the first round? But Captain Doyen, watching from the human section, smiled slightly. He recognized what Yuna was doing. She was not running away. She was gathering information. Every attack Tolrek made told her something. How he moved when tired, which side he favored, how his breathing changed under exertion. Tolerek was strong and skilled, but Yuna had something he did not. She had patience learned from millions of years of human evolution. Humans were persistence hunters. They did not need to be faster than their prey. They just needed to outlast it. At minute 15, Tolerek's attack started slowing. Not much, just a fraction. But Yuna noticed. She began changing her tactics. Instead of just evading, she started making him chase her. She led him through the roughest terrain. She made him expend energy on attacks that barely missed. She made him think he was winning while systematically exhausting him. At minute 30, Tolerek was breathing heavily. His movements had lost their precision, and that was when Yuna struck. She stopped retreating and attacked with sudden ferocity, not wild attacks, calculated strikes to his already tired muscles. Attacks that built on the fatigue she had forced him to accumulate. Tolerek tried to rally. He was a warrior. He had trained his whole life for moments like this. But his body would not respond the way he needed it to. When Yuna finally executed a throw that used his own momentum against him, he hit the ground hard and could not get up fast enough. She applied a submission hold that left him no choice but to tap out. 47 minutes. That was how long the match lasted. When it ended, both fighters could barely stand. But Yuna had won. The crowd's reaction was thunderous. They had just watched a human defeat one of the galaxy's most respected warriors through pure tactical brilliance and endurance. General Vormul sat in his section, watching Tolerek being helped from the arena. He felt no shame, only respect. The human had fought with honor and skill. She had earned her victory. The semifinals matched Yuna against Tilvax, the Vryn champion. He had won the ground melee 3 times before. He was fast, experienced, and deadly. Many considered him the favorite to win the entire tournament. The match was brutal. Tilvax's forearms moved faster than most species could follow. But Yuna had studied his previous matches. She had found patterns in his fighting style. Preferences. Tells that showed what attack was coming next. 3 times during the match, she let him hit her. She absorbed blows that would have ended most fighters, but each time she did it to create an opening. The 3rd time, she stayed inside his guard and unleashed a combination of strikes that his forearms could not fully block. The match went to the judges. Both fighters were standing. Both were bloodied and exhausted. The judges deliberated for 5 minutes that felt like hours. When the decision came, it was unanimous but close. Yuna advanced to the finals. The championship match was scheduled for 1 week later. Yuna's opponent was Dekvar, the massive Kreshnak warrior from the first round. He had destroyed every opponent in his path. He was heavily favored to win. The build-up to the finals was intense. Analysts across the galaxy debated the match. Some argued Dekvar's strength and size were too much. Others pointed to Yuna's tactical skills and endurance. The betting was split almost evenly. Ambassador Hyejin sat with Captain Doyun the night before the finals. The pressure on her must be enormous, Hyejin said quietly. Yuna does not feel pressure the way others do, Doyun replied. She told me once that pressure is an illusion, created when you care more about the outcome than the process. She focuses only on what she can control. Her training, her preparation, her execution. What if she loses? Then she loses, Doyun said simply. But she will lose having given everything she has. And the galaxy will have learned the lesson anyway. Humans do not quit. That is the real message here. The final match began with Dekvar using overwhelming force. He came at Yuna with everything he had, trying to end the fight quickly before she could employ her usual tactics. For 5 solid minutes, Yuna could not mount any offense. She was entirely focused on survival. But 5 minutes of maximum effort cost Dekvar energy he would need later. Yuna was counting on it. She had studied human persistence hunting techniques. She knew that size and strength meant nothing if you could not maintain them. When his attacks finally slowed, Yuna transitioned. Not to offense yet, to control. She stayed close to him where his size became a disadvantage, where his strikes could not generate full power. She attacked his breathing, his balance, his endurance. The crowd watched in fascination as the small human controlled the pace against an opponent twice her size. Every movement she made had purpose. Nothing was wasted. She was not trying to overpower him. She was trying to outlast him. At 20 minutes, Dekvar was visibly tired. At 30 minutes, he was struggling. At 35 minutes, he made a desperate overhead strike with all his remaining strength. Yuna stepped into it inside his reach and drove her shoulder into his center mass while simultaneously sweeping his lead leg. The massive Kreshnak fell. Yuna controlled his descent and immediately applied a chokehold. The same technique she had used in the first round. Simple, effective, devastating. Dekvar had 3 choices: submit, pass out, or suffer permanent injury. After 5 seconds of struggle, his hand slapped the mat 3 times. The signal of submission. The arena exploded with noise. Yuna had won the grand melee. A human had defeated the galaxy's greatest warriors. 1 week after the tournament, the Galactic Council reconvened. Resolution 4477, the human combat ban, was being put to a new vote, but this time, the chamber had a very different atmosphere. Ambassador Hyejin stood at the central platform. Behind her, the holographic display showed highlights from the grand melee. Yuna's victories, her tactics, her endurance, her refusal to surrender even when everything seemed against her. Members of the council, Hyejin began. You banned humanity from combat events because you thought we were weak. You saw our smaller bodies and assumed we could not compete. You were wrong. She gestured to the display. You missed something fundamental about humanity. We did not evolve to be the strongest or the fastest. We evolved to be the most stubborn, the most adaptable, the most creative. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to survive what would destroy you. General Vormal stood from his seat. Ambassador Hyejin, I was among those who supported the ban. I believed humans were too fragile for combat. I was wrong. The Kreshnak Empire formally apologizes and requests that Resolution 4477 be completely overturned. One by one, species representatives stood. Some offered apologies. Others acknowledged their error. Some simply voted to reverse the ban without comment. When the final vote came, Resolution 4477 was not just overturned, it was erased from the record. The council formally acknowledged that the ban had been based on prejudice rather than fact. That evening, Corporal Yuna was back in the human embassy training room. Despite her injuries from the finals, she was doing light exercises. Captain Doyen found her there. You are famous across the galaxy now, he said. They are calling you the Terran Storm. Every network wants interviews. There are endorsement offers. You could be very wealthy. Yuna finished her set before responding. I did not do it for fame or money, sir. I know. You did it for respect. More than that, Yuna said, meeting his eyes. I did it because someone had to show them. We are not fragile. We are not weak. We are human. And that means something. Doyen smiled. It does now. Across the galaxy, the footage from the Grand Melee was being studied in military academies and combat training facilities. Humanity had not just competed. They had introduced entirely new concepts to species that thought they knew everything about warfare and combat. The ban had lasted 3 weeks. The lesson it taught would last forever. Humanity had earned their place not through technology or diplomacy, but through the oldest currency in existence. Respect earned through combat. 5 years later, human combat instructors taught in academies across Council space. Human tactics influenced military doctrine. Human endurance training became standard in elite units.